also looking forward to, keeping this trip around the country that we take every year, as we do. Where this week we're going to be talking the NFC North, right? So each week we talk the studs in the division, studs, busts, sleepers, and got to get ourselves some dynasty action, talking dynasty as well. So a lot of our logic today is going to be based on their ADP rankings. Where they're currently at. We use the half point PPR from Fantasy Pros rankings. We know they change every day, but this is just kind of the snapshot where they're at, and do we like where they're going at or not, right? Are they gonna perform according to their ADP, or are they gonna kind of bust out? So we can kick off the show with the stud category. And coming up, in the NFC North, we do have quite a few guys to talk about today, and it starts with ADP number 5, and that's Justin Jefferson. So, Ethan, why don't you tell everyone how you feel if you're at that fifth pick? Are you drafting JJ at the fifth pick?
I don't believe I am. I just think there's a lot of risk with Justin Jefferson this year with Darnold or McCarthy at the helm. It wasn't a very efficient offense last year with the quarterback carousel that was in Minnesota. And just at wide receiver 3 overall and number 5 overall, I would just rather play it safe there and draft a Jamar Chase who goes a pick later, Amon-Ra St. Brown who goes at pick 8, and even guys like in the running back position like Bijan Robinson who go after Justin Jefferson. I just think they're much safer picks at this point, just with the uncertainty at the quarterback position in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I actually thought I was going to be out an outlier here, and I know you love Justin Jefferson, and most of the fantasy community loves Justin Jefferson as well. But I'm kind of with you. I think at pick 5, I think in previous years I would take Jefferson over these guys, but I think just where we're at preseason, where we don't know what the quarterback play is going to be like in Minnesota, and you got somebody like Jamar Chase with a healthy Burrow. Going to be coming back with a vengeance this year, or even St. Brown that's just coming off of a 100-yard season, or if you want to go stud running back at Bijan, I definitely agree that some of those guys may rock your fantasy league a little bit more. And I think Justin Jefferson, there's just question marks. I think he's definitely a stud, but I think I'm with you too, where I may just want to go with the safe approach. I mean, can you go wrong with Justin Jefferson? I don't think so, but if you truly want to maybe get the one up there, I would rather have someone like Chase.
Yeah,
What?
no, just with the efficiency of these offenses, I think Justin Jefferson, he's going to have to get by with just immense target volume, which I do project. But I mean, you do have guys like Jordan Addison there. Hawkinson's going to come back at some point, so there is target competition. Even though Justin Jefferson is a stud, I just think in terms of upside, especially in the first half of the first round, you definitely want receivers in top scoring offenses.
Agreed. So speaking of receivers and top scoring offenses, and just a guy 3 picks later, we did already mention his name. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown, ADP 8, right? So I think we're both in agreement here, just based off of that logic. If I'm at number 8, and I'm staring down St. Brown. I think I'm drafting him. So, what do you think there?
No, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has wide receiver overall number 1 upside. And I listened to other podcasts out there, and one podcast I was listening to was talking about receivers in bottom 5 scoring offenses compared to receivers in top 5 scoring offenses, and the chance of a receiver being a top 5 receiver when they're coming from one of those top offenses compared to the bottom 5 offenses is insane. The discrepancy in terms of the chance they actually are that top 5 receiver. So like we talked about Justin Jefferson, if they're a bottom 10, maybe bottom 5 offense this year, he just needs to do so much more to kind of vault himself up into that top five overall receiver than a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown does because the Lions offense, very efficient. They're going to probably be a top five offensive this year. So he's as safe as it gets in the first round.
I agree with you there for sure, and it's going to be funny because we're going to have a run of Lions players here. Just talked St. Brown, but if you just go a few more picks later, you got Jamar Gibbs that you're staring at ADP 12. What's your take on Gibbs at the turn at the first round turn?
I'm in on Gibbs at the 112 there. I know me and Kamish talked about that not too long ago when we were on with Wyatt. Um, I just think Gibbs at that 112 locks in your running back, and then you can kind of hammer receiver after that. I just think Gibbs has so much upside. We just talked about potential top five scoring offense in the Detroit Lions. He's going to have every opportunity to score a lot of fantasy points for you. So I'm okay taking Gibbs at the 112.
This is one where, I think we'll have a little bit of a disagreement, or I'm at least going to give you a different take here. I know just as I speak on how Downtown Brown builds his rosters here and there, right? I mean, you got Puka at 11, Gibbs at 12, right? So they're, to me, in my opinion, they're very similar players where they have competition within their own team, right? I mean, with Puka, you got Cup, right? But at the 11, but at 12, you got David Montgomery, where they still love him over there in Detroit. He's still going to be used as a goal line back too. So for me, when I'm building my offenses out, especially in the first round, I really, really got to get consistent points. And sure, yeah, Gibbs is still going to be a target hog. He's still going to be in the receiving game and get his fantasy points. But I really try to look for consistency, right? So, um, this you may not like this opinion here, but I would rather actually even go a few spots down and grab somebody like Travis Etienne, who's a solid running back on his team, and then just grab like someone like Garrett Wilson right after that too. So I don't know your thoughts on that. You can have a little rebuttal there, but I would rather go at the turn ETN Garrett Wilson.
It's a hot take in my opinion. I just think Gibbs in that offense just has so much upside. ETN has upside too. I mean, there are talks in Jacksonville that they are looking to limit ETN's touches compared to last year. Uh, the Tank Bigsby hype was there last year,
They
and that
said that last year too.
yeah, it faded very quickly last year. I just all I really heard is that they do want to kind of limit his touches this year, but ETN he's one of those running backs that you can take it to the house any given carry. I do think he has a lot of upside, but there's no way I'm taking ETN over Gibbs. So we will agree to disagree on that one.
All right, but even though ETN had a higher points per game, right? So I mean they also had almost the exact same targets last year as well. So
Hey, Gibbs year two, he's on the up and up. Let's go.
that's true. That's true. All right. So as I said, we're gonna make this lion run. So we're not done with talking lions yet. So we also, if you go another 10 spots down from Gibbs, you got Sam Laporta, ADP 22. What are your thoughts over with drafting the first tight end off the board at 22?
I'm out at this price point at 22 overall tight end one. I mean, Salem Porter is a beast, but I feel like there's a lot of value at tight end this year. And I'm normally a person who likes to kind of punt the tight end position. If you just look at ADP, according to Fantasy Pros half point, um, you have a guy like Trey McBride at 47. I mean, are we going to argue that Trey McBride doesn't have almost as much upside as a Sam Laporta? Probably not. I mean, Mark Andrews, 49, Kincaid, 51, Kyle Pitts, 60, Evan Ingram, who had whatever 136 targets or whatnot last year at 70. I mean, even a guy like Jake Ferguson, we all know Dak Prescott loves throwing to his tight ends. He's at 80. Njoku, who was a top whatever 6 or top five tight end last year, you can get him at 86 overall. So I just think there's a little too much value at the tight end position to take a guy like Laporta at 22. I mean, you can get a guy like I don't know Devon A. Chain right around here. I mean, you can keep hammering receiver in this range too. I mean, not everybody agrees Drake London at 25 is a good pick, but I mean, there's wide receiver ones available, obviously in this range. There's decent running back value in this range. I'd rather go in that direction, and then pull the trigger on tight end a little later.
I agree with you for sure. I don't think I'm drafting tight end this early as well. I mean, when you look at overall points, I know we like, Laporta's come out rookie season, but um as you said, there's still talented tight ends and really the difference in overall points grabbing Laporta, even at his ceiling compared to some of these other guys at their ceiling, to me it's not worth it, especially in redraft. I mean, if you're talking like a premium league or a dynasty premium league, yeah, like maybe it's a different conversation. I could see the case. Even then, I still, um, you know, where he's getting drafted at is pretty high, right? So I think there's a lot of hype on him right now as well. So I'm also out at Laporte at 22 as well. But hey, we're not done with studs in this division, but we are finished talking Lions, so we'll switch around a little bit in in this division. We're gonna talk a Packers guy. He just barely makes the stud category according to our standards. We say top 25 guys coming in at least right now. Fantasy Pros ADP 24 is Josh Jacobs. Ethan, are you drafting Josh Jacobs at 24?
This is a tough one, but I'll probably pass on Jacobs here in this range at 24, back end of the second round. I just Josh Jacobs has a lot of miles on the tires over the last couple of years. They just drafted Marshawn Lloyd in the third round. AJ Dillon's still there. I feel like Matt LaFleur's been trying to get a two-back system there for a little while. I just don't think AJ Dillon panned out the way they were hoping when they used the second round pick a few years ago on him. I just the wear and tear. Are we going to see Josh Jacobs um, start to let that wear and tear affect him? Are there too many miles on his body? Is he going to be able to handle a workhorse role and not get hurt? I do love the fact that he's going to be playing in a top 10 offense. So I do think there's a lot of upside here with Josh Jacobs, but I do think it's a little risky considering I think there is going to be a little competition for touches. There's obviously a lot of competition target wise. So how is he going to? Is he going to be the third down back? Is he going to be the guy out there catching a lot of those passes? I think initially, yes. I don't think AJ Dillon's going to be a big threat in the pass game, and Marshawn Lloyd, he's going to take some time to work into the offense. So I think Jacobs initially is going to be the workhorse for the Green Bay Packers. So I do think it's a relatively safe pick at 24, but I guess it kind of depends what I did with my first round pick. If I went running back in the first round, I'd probably look to go receiver here. If I went receiver in the first round, um, Josh Jacobs sitting here, I mean, it's not the worst RB1 on your team, but I know those zero running back zealots would probably hate Josh Jacobs at 24. What do you think?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there's still the stud running back builds out there, right? I mean, to your point, if you had the first pick, you probably went CMC, right? So if you want to lock up your running back room, I don't think anybody would hate having CMC and Jacobs, but you're setting yourself up for like, possible injuries in both of
Yeah.
those, right? So it's a little bit of risk going running back there, but then again, the other guys, I mean, the next wide receiver off the board, if you don't go Jacobs, is Kamish's favorite guy, Drake London. So as you said, I mean, Jacobs could be a safe week to week play. I mean, then you can maybe grab somebody like Debo Samuel, and then I mean, you could have a scenario, you got CMC, Jacobs, and Debo, pretty good if you're looking at consistency, consistent points, I'm all about that, as I keep saying. So I don't hate it. Just if you're looking strictly at the ADP, and I think, being in Green Bay, they run in the cold and in Lambeau Field, right? So that's right during playoff time as well. They got to rely on that game. So it it's a different it could be a different story in 2024. So I guess I'm talking myself in. I'm in on Jacobs at 24, just looking at the guys around him. You have any thoughts on that?
I mean, Josh Jacobs, we just don't know what back we're going to get, right? I mean, he was a stud in 2022. He almost had 400 touches. He ranked 18th in yards per touch and 13th in yards created per touch in 2022. And in this past season, he was 37th in missed tackles forced per attempt and 44th in yards after contact per attempt. Um, so there was a clear drop off from Jacobs from 2022 to 2023. And like I said, I mean, when you get almost 400 touches in a season, your body just gets banged up, and he's not getting any younger. So he's just in a tough spot where I just don't know what Jacobs we're going to see. Are we going to see the 2022 version, or are we going to see the 2023 version? So that in that regard, that's why I'm probably going to pass on Josh Jacobs in the second round. Even though I do I've always been a fan of Josh Jacobs, and I do hope he has a, good year for some of my dynasty teams. But I think I may go in a different direction at the 212. Especially like you said, you probably went CMC at the 101.
Right, right. All right. All right. Well, that's enough talking the good guys, the studs here. Let's move on to always a fun conversation. Let's talking bus, right? So here we also look at ADP here. I think we go up to top 50 usually. And top 50 guys we're out on this type of player here. So Ethan, why don't you kick it off with who you're gonna talk as a bus in the NFC North this year?
My bust in the NFC North, I'm going to go over to Minnesota. And I'm going to say Aaron Jones, overall 53, RB 18, the 505. And I just think at the 505, you may be getting into that quote unquote dead zone running back area. I just think Aaron Jones at RB 18, you're probably drafting him at a ceiling, considering he's going to be playing, I think, in a bottom scoring offense. Not very efficient offense, like I said, with McCarthy and or Darnold at the helm. He's about to play his age 30 season, and he just came off a year where he missed 6 games due to hamstring and knee issues. Those usually don't tend to get better as you age. um, and like I said, their offense isn't going to be very efficient with the quarterback play. You never know. Maybe McCarthy, I mean, takes the world by storm, or Darnold, who knows? But I'm not projecting that. There's also a decent amount of competition just in terms of receiving target wise with Jefferson, Addison, a healthy Hawkinson. And you got Ty Chandler too back there. He's very explosive. I think there's going to be more of a 1-2 punch than people would like to admit in Minnesota. Last year, Aaron Jones had 10.9 points per game last season in a top 12 scoring offense. The Vikings only had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. With obviously all the injuries they had, their offense wasn't very good. That ranked 25th in the league. The Packers were 15th in overall rushing yards, where the Vikings were 29th with only a 1,553 rushing yards. So the Vikings, they're probably going to be a little better, but when you have an inefficient offense, um, you're not going to have the amount of plays that a top 10 scoring offense is going to have. So you're not going to get the attempts. You're not get the amount of attempts or the amount of targets that some other back is going to get in the top 10 scoring offense, a more efficient offense. And just at that range, I'd probably rather hammer a receiver, right? I want to avoid that dead zone running back. The forcing running back in the middle rounds there has led to my demise in years past. And I'd rather just take a shot at a T. Higgins at 57, Tank Dell 65, Malik Neighbors 54, Flowers 55, Pickens 58. All those guys I think have more upside than a guy like Aaron Jones, who's an aging running back on an inefficient offense.
Yeah, I don't hate that call. I think just looking at where he's at, and your draft strategy, right? We all know the demise of the running backs just in general, as you said, the last couple years. However, I do think that Aaron Jones I think he's ranked right in according to um, you know, how he statted out, right? So he falls right below Kamara as well, to where that's another example of a guy that slightly on his downturn, a little bit of a regression we saw last year with Alvin Kamara, but I mean they're very similar players where they're they're catching passes, they're going to be that number one running back on their team. I actually think there's less competition in Minnesota than Kamara has in New Orleans. So um, I think if you're desperate for a running back and depending on how your draft board goes, I wouldn't mind grabbing Aaron Jones just because I think people are out on him at times. But I mean, he started off the year strong last year. Of course, he did get injured again, so he is a guy that does get hurt frequently as well too. So as you said, they are reoccurring, but sometimes on those struggling offenses, they do make sure they get guys like that involved that can stay out there on the field. You might have like a Rashad White situation going on where they got to dump it to him on third down, 3rd and 8, and he gets a 6 yard catch, and it's a punting situation, right? So, but th those are still ways that he can rack up points. I don't know if that totally counters your argument, but I wouldn't hate Aaron Jones either, to where I think he's about right when it comes to running back rankings.
Yeah, I mean, he's overall 53, RB 18, but I just think you can get similar production later down the board. I mean, it's kind of gross, but Devin Singletary, right? He's overall 87, he's RB 30, right?
Yep,
There's not very much competition in New York. It's not going to be a very good offense, but he's going to get volume and he's going to get targets out of the backfield.
for sure.
I mean, even guy like Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, can he rebound? But he's right now gone off the board 90th overall. It's him and Brian Robinson. It's going to be a split, but I mean, Eckler still has a ton of upside. So that's why I just think in that range, I'd rather just go receiver and then get one of these running backs, get these later round running backs to fill out my roster.
I hear you. I hear you. Ethan is out on Aaron Jones for sure. So, yeah, we'll definitely move on from Aaron. He's got a good first name. I'll tell you that. But
Oh, I'm definitely out now.
right, just
Get him off my team.
A1 there, yeah. But yeah, as far as my bus candidate goes, I'm gonna bring up ADP 39. That's gonna be DJ Moore, right? It's interesting because just coming off the news, DJ Moore was just signed for 4 years, $110 million contract. So definitely got paid. I mean, I think out there for your Adunze managers, you kind of hate to see that where Adunze is going to be competing with Moore for the next possible 4 years as well. But in regards to his ADP and just redraft season, I think we've talked about it. Just with the competition rookie quarterback, where I think Moore is still going to put up good fantasy points, but I think we were talking before the show. It's not always, I don't always put the players where they're at in their ADP. I also put where they're at against their teammates as well, right? So if you're willing to get DJ Moore at pick 39, you should also just look where Keenan Allen is getting drafted at pick 68. If you, I guess in the scenario where if you pass on Moore and grab Keenan Allen, which, they should have very comparable targets this year with rookie's probably going to be leaning on a good route runner like Keenan Allen as well, even though he is aging. If you can grab him in the 6th round, and then instead you can grab DJ at the 39 spot, you can get somebody like, if you wanna a better running back like I'm pretty high on Joe Mixon, but if you want like a Mixon, a Kenneth Walker, or heck, even like Cooper Kupp has less target competition than DJ Moore, we're anticipating this year. I think I would do that honestly, where he's just coming off of a season where he had 96 catches, 1,300 yards, to where he's kind of due for a little bit of a regression, I think, with the new guys in town, new offense, and all of his target competition. So, I mean, it's not a horrible spot to draft him at, considering where he finished last year. But I guess just kind of going more with the theory, if you basically go with the teammate look at stat out their teammates when you got, talented wide receivers on the same team. I wouldn't mind grabbing Allen in the sixth is kind of more my opinion there.
I actually don't mind DJ Moore at this price point, wide receiver 20. He was wide receiver six last year on 136 targets. Granted, the wide receiver two and three in the Bears offense last year. The true, I guess, wide receiver two was Komet, who had 90 targets, and then Mooney had 61. So not a lot of target competition per se for DJ Moore, but they also had Fields at the helm, who wasn't a very efficient passer. I think with Caleb Williams, you're going to get a more efficient offense, a better offense. So I think the pass attempts are going to be up from last year, which will help a guy like DJ Moore with the added competition with Odunze and Keenan Allen. But just looking at the receivers around DJ Moore at pick 39, the next receiver is DK Metcalf. I'd much rather have DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore has uh, way more upside than DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf will score you over like 15 points like twice and just stay healthy and be a back end wide receiver two or a wide receiver two. And that won't really help you win a fantasy championship. You can have Cooper Cup for like 6 games. So that doesn't help you very much. I mean, then Devontae Smith, he's the clear cut wide receiver two on his team. Um, and then you have Amari Cooper, the wide receiver one in Cleveland. I think that would be a valid argument depending how high you are on the Cleveland Browns offense. But they did just bring in Jerry Jeudy, but I think Amari Cooper still is the clear number one there. But you do have target competition with Jeudy and Njoku. So I think just looking at the receivers in that range, I would go DJ Moore just in terms of upside alone. I think DJ Moore is a great receiver who just got paid $27.5 million a year. It's not what Ayuk would have settled for, but DJ Moore was okay with it. But I'm actually okay pushing the button on DJ Moore in this range just because I think he does have a ton of upside in this offense. And compared to the players in this range, I'm okay pushing the button, like I said.
Got it. Yeah, no, I definitely hear it, and it definitely does depend on how your draft's going. Have you passed up to this point on running backs, and do you already have stud wide receivers? If you do, maybe that I keep bringing up the consistency. Do you need an everyday starter as some of the running backs I was mentioning or not? So, yeah, don't hate it depending on certain draft strategies, but as I said, I think he's my bust candidate in this scenario for me. But let's move on. Let's move on to sleepers here. This is always a fun conversation. Ethan, I'll let you take it away with our first sleeper of the night.
I'm going to cheat a little bit in this category because we talk about this player way too much on this show. But we can't go through an NFC North episode and not bring up our guy, Christian Watson.
Yes.
Right now, his ADP is overall 90, wide receiver 40, which is just, I think, ridiculous. People are clearly concerned with his injury history. He did see a specialist this year, this offseason, to fix his hamstring issue. There seems to be like a muscle imbalance, which, according to reports, they think they figured out. And I'm hoping they did because I would love to see healthy Christian Watson for 17 games because I think the ceiling he has is incredible. And just looking at a guy in Christian Watson who I think has weekly wide receiver one top 12 finish weekly. Um, he unfortunately only played 9 games last year due to injuries. Um, Everyone is kind of injury prone until they're not. It's happened to certain players. I mean, Keenan Allen was hurt a ton early in his career. Then all of a sudden, he had a solid run of not getting hurt, and look at how his career has been. So hopefully, Christian Watson can get out there and stay out there on the field. Watson, I think he is the true wide receiver one when healthy. Um, there is a lot of competition for targets with Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Luke Musgrave, Dontavian Wicks. But when all three guys run the field in terms of Dobbs, Reed, and Watson, if you take out week 4 last year where Watson only played 46% of the snaps, and Dobbs also had 13 targets in that game too, due to the Watson absence. But he led all those three in air yards, which signifies massive opportunity and fantasy points. And I know Debro was talking up Watson a ton on our show a few weeks ago, and he was talking about first read share. Jordan Love was looking at him initially at a higher clip than Reed and Dobbs. I think Love wants to go to Watson. Just unfortunately, he hasn't been on the field. Um, but Watson also did lead all three of those receivers, averaging 91 air yards a game compared to Reed's 61. So also with Jaden Reed too. I mean, he had a ton of touchdowns. He had 10 total touchdowns, I believe, last year. So I think he's due for some touchdown regression to the mean. But overall, I think Watson has crazy upside at wide receiver 40 prices, wide receiver 4 prices. Is there a better lottery ticket to buy than Christian Watson at that price?
No, it's crazy how much Watson has not been adjusted in rankings, but ADP 103 is criminal. And in fact, it's funny, like before our show tonight, we did not know the players we're going to talk about, but the only text I sent you was like, "Hey, who's your sleeper?" And he was like, "It's Watson." I'm like, "Okay, good. I'm glad you asked because that's exactly who mine was going to be." So I had to come up with a backup sleeper over this because, yeah, I did definitely agree with you. I'm not going to touch much more on Watson. Like I said, just draft him. Even if you draft him like 10 spots ahead, do it, right? That's still that's still too late for Watson according to his ADP. So definitely reach in your league if that ADP is coming up. So definitely agree with you there. My sleeper tonight, I'm gonna actually say TJ Hawkinson here at ADP 110. So, kind of want to just paint a picture for you here to where, as we talked about, like kind of valuing the tight end position too high, I think can be a mistake in many drafts, right? Where if you try to draft a tight end too high and you miss, or some other tight ends severely outscore your tight end, you've lost massively, not only at the tight end position, but also who you could have drafted at that spot as well. So I think Hawkinson is a very sneaky play to where, let's just say in the scenario you totally punt the tight end position in the first 9 rounds. In a kind of a standard lineup league, you're really solidifying your starting lineup and possibly even getting like your first bench player to where, if you do have an injury, you got a pretty solid group of position players you can play week in, week out. And if you listen to our show and you grab sleepers like Noah Fant later down the line, or maybe Dolchich, and you want to maybe ride them out for like the first 6 weeks, while Hawkinson's most likely going to be on the PUP list to start the season. But instead, like I said, in this scenario where instead of grabbing somebody like a Kincaid or Pitts or someone, and maybe right in that range, you grab somebody like a Kamara. Even your boy Aaron Jones I brought up, where Kamara, Aaron Jones, Zay Flowers, or Kyler Murray's your QB1. These are all players all in the 6th round to where you're, like I said, you're solidifying your starting lineup that much stronger. And what you're betting on is you're going to get a healthy Hawkinson comeback for the second half of the year. You can plug him in during your playoff run, and then you got even a stronger starting lineup. So hopefully I painted a good picture, a good scenario there where if you're patient enough to grab maybe Hawkinson in the 10th round, I would not mind doing that.
No, I love the call there with TJ Hawkinson because what wins fantasy championships? It's all about upside, right? So, what pick in the 10th round has more upside than TJ Hawkinson? TJ Hawkinson, when he comes back, I think it may take a few games to get back into the swing of things, but if he can be 85% of what he was last season, just getting back from the ACL, he's still going to be a top 5 tight end, probably top 6 tight end, and that's only 85%. If he comes back and he's TJ Hawkinson, then you find yourself a league winning player in the 10th round. It's TJ Hawkinson. He got hurt, I believe, in what was it week 2? No, it
Late.
was yeah, it was actually kind of later in the season, November maybe. So it is going to take like I said, it may take some time, but by accounts, he is ahead of schedule, and things are looking on the up and up for TJ Hawkinson. But I just like this call because I like punting the tight end position. And what's a pick at that position with more upside than him? I mean, he's been an absolute stud over the past few seasons. And with the young quarterback in McCarthy, maybe he's the starter by the time he gets back. But even if Darnold's still the quarterback, these kind of backup level or even younger quarterbacks, they tend to look at their tight end as that safety valve. And who's a better safety valve than TJ Hawkinson?
Exactly, and not to harp on it, that much more, but we talked total fantasy points and just a couple comparisons. I know I brought up like your boy with Kincaid or Pitts, but just as a question, don't you think that a healthy Alvin Kamara is most likely going to score more overall points than a Kyle Pitts or a Kincaid?
I mean, most likely because most fantasy redraft leagues don't have that tight end premium. So most of the tight ends aren't going to score more than an Alvin Kamara. And just to clarify, yeah, Hawkinson was injured pretty late last year. It was week 16 against Detroit. He got hurt. So it may take some time for him to come back, but we'll see. But like I said, upside wins championships, and sometimes you got to swing for the fences.
That's right. That's right. I guess we'll talk not swinging for the fences, where we'll move into dynasty stash players, and these are guys where you got to kind of be a little bit more patient with. We love talking dynasty on the show too, so we talked a lot of redraft. Kind of our stash candidates are more guys that if you're in dynasty leagues, you wanna draft them and kind of tuck them away for a little while and kind of wait for them to ripen a little bit. So. Ethan, how about we talk about who your dynasty stash is in the NFC North?
A reason for my Jacobs hesitation at the 24th overall pick is because there's a guy, Marshawn Lloyd, who was the 25th pick in the third round by the Green Bay Packers. Right now, his dynasty ranking, according to Fantasy Pros, is 120 overall, RB 34, and I think he's just a great stash candidate. I believe he's a full three down back. I know they just paid Josh Jacobs, but I believe Marshawn Lloyd can be the running back of the future for the Green Bay Packers. As I said, third round capital. That's great. This guy has all the metrics you're looking for: 4.46 40, 36-inch vert, 9 foot 10 broad, and he's 5'9", 220 pounds, 92nd percentile BMI. So the guy has the requisite athleticism and size to be a workhorse back in the NFL. And I think he's a very talented back, put in a very good situation in terms of a top scoring offense. But he's just a guy I was pretty high on in the pre-draft process, and I know he's a guy that people were trying to trade into the second round of the rookie drafts to try to get a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, just because I mean, he has a ton of upside in that offense. If anything happens to Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd comes on, he could be a league winner as early as this year. But just over the last two seasons at USC, he was top 20 in yards after contact per attempt, breakaway rate, and PFF elusive rating. So he was a clear, solid back in college over the past few years at USC. There was the size, the athleticism, and the three down skill set. So I think he's definitely a guy you can stash on your taxi squad, who could end up being a league winner this year if Jacobs goes down.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up Marshawn Lloyd as a stash candidate. I probably should have texted you who's your stash because that's actually my stash candidate as well. So, as you said, I think Lloyd's definitely talented coming out of college. One thing I looked at though that I guess that's maybe slightly more of a negative approach where I don't think he has as much 2024 upside as even if Jacobs gets hurt because you still do have AJ Dillon in there as well.
Oh no, not AJ Dillon.
Where, yeah, I know. I mean, this is probably AJ Dillon's last year for sure, but you definitely can't forget about him, right? So if you're saying you're on the 1 yard line, um, and Josh Jacobs is hurt, they probably are going to have Dylan at the goal line. So that's one thing I looked at there. But, fortunately, in Lloyd's situation, this is Dylan's last year of his contract. So, as I mentioned, he's probably going bye-bye. So I can see Marshawn Lloyd being one of the best handcuffs in football, being a young running back. So I'm kind of looking at him more to kind of blossom in the 2025 season. And I know, as Kamish has said many times, that if you really take a deep dive of how Josh Jacobs' a 4-year contract that he just signed is structured, um, you could potentially look at him being cut in the 2026 season, which kind of does pave and paint a story for Marshawn Lloyd's starting potential. But hey, even if that doesn't happen, as we know in fantasy, handcuffs can work out for you pretty well. I know Allen Madison was not the starter that we wanted him to be last year, right? But he was one heck of a handcuff. So I think, Marshawn Lloyd, I would compare him in fantasy right now as like an Allen Madison of the future. Somebody I would really trust, if like a Jacobs goes down. So Marshawn Lloyd is also my stash candidate. And Ethan, you might like this one where, coming out of USC, you might have that Rojo potential there too, where
Oh, Rojo's my guy.
yeah, that's
Where is
right.
Rojo? He's got to come back.
That's right. Maybe he'll make a comeback season. Actually maybe that was Rojo maybe took some of Darnold's success. Maybe Lloyd took some of Caleb Williams' success over there.
Yeah, poor Rojo. I was always so high on Rojo. I was hoping he'd eventually break through, and he never did, unfortunately. But looking at Jacob's contract, according to Spotrac.com, it's I feel like there is actually a potential out after the 2024 season. I think with a post 6/1 release date in 2025, it would have a dead cap of 3.1, but they'd save $8.2 million next year, and it would kind of push the dead cap hit into 2026, which would be 6.2, 6.3 roughly million in 2026. So if Jacobs does go out there and is injured, and Marshawn Lloyd starts to come on, who knows with Josh Jacobs? Maybe he won't even be there after 2024. You know how these NFL contracts are heavily weighted in those first couple of years, and there's outs all over the place. So there's never a sure thing, especially at the running back position.
I agree. I mean, there is that scenario. I mean, they can also, if he has a good 2024 season, they might be able to play around and convert some of that money um in 2025, right? Does he stick around one more season? Possibly, but what they're doing when they when they restructure that contract, it just making that dead money less of an impact in those future years too. So I think both scenarios can work out. They could potentially drop him after this season, but it would be kind of hard to drop him if he has this amazing season. But I think as you mentioned, how it's structured, there's a lot of play and wiggle room that gives the Green Bay Packers to kind of do whatever they want with it.
Yeah,
But
so I mean, I hope Josh Jacobs has a good year. I mean, the reason why this is the dynasty stash section is because we don't think Lloyd is going to come out and set the world on fire. But I'm not with some injury, which is usually the case with these dynasty stashes. It could lead to some opportunity.
definitely agree with you. But hey, that's all we got for today's show. So for all of you audience out there, if you're listening on Spotify, definitely spread the word. Maybe after your draft season is over, you can sell, after maybe you're in first place a few weeks out, then spread the word. Hey, it's all thanks to Sunday Surefire. If you're same goes if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll keep dropping all these nuggets as a preseason and season continues as well. But with that being said, guys, we'll end it the same way we always do. Peace.